James,
Raf.
define intelligence.
Define intelligence. The first aspect of knowing intelligence for me, reverse engineering from first principles.
Yes, as we do always on this podcast.
So, I mean, obviously...
Australia's number one Bayesian podcast.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people will be influenced by dominant narratives, sometimes often politicized.
Unfortunately.
Yep. There's a deep sort of like pedagogical influence from the way that you've been taught,
Ideology.
Ideology infuses absolutely everything. Not on this podcast, though, because we reverse engineer from very, very first principles. Mm-hmm. So for me, first part of intelligence is knowing shit.
Okay.
First bit is like knowing facts.
Mm-hmm.
That can be everything from, 2 + 2 is 4.
Yep.
Elephants are grey. That's a fact.
What about a white elephant?
Does that exist?
Infrequently, is my understanding.
Well, I mean, okay, well, let's not get bogged down. Again, this is all part of the spirit of inquiry is not getting bogged down in edge cases.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, it's knowing shit.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is having street smarts. That's the second part of intelligence.
Yeah, that's important.
Street smarts, which you can define oppositionally from book smarts.
Is there a dialectic there?
Between street smarts and book smarts?
Yeah.
Thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
Mm-hmm.
Thesis, book smarts. Antithesis, street smarts.
Mm-hmm.
Synthesis, Down Round podcast.
Really put you in hot water there as well.
Oh, I nailed it. Well, it's great that we've established the baseline for what intelligence is.
Now define artificial. That's easy, fake.
Like plastic or computer. would be my read on that. Down around, we've been floundering for some product releases of late.
Yeah.
We're at the back end of the year. It's the silly season. It's the silly season for the
foreseeable future.
For the egg. Well, that's it. You listened to our previous episode where we established the parameters. August through to April, I think, was where we landed. But it's also silly season for the boffins in Silicon Valley. Mm. So, we haven't done an episode that's about a proper product release in a while. But Apple Intelligence...
It's been knocking about for months.
It's been knocking about for once in beta. Mm. People have been using it, but it's been released to the public. And we thought it was a wonderful opportunity to talk about it in its primetime form because it's been built up to for ages. There's a bunch of corporate strategy that's gone into Apple's alignment with the AI moment. They didn't have it ready for the last iPhone. They didn't have it ready for the last iOS update. It was a sort of an off-kilter update, iOS 18.2, but it's now out. If you have an iPhone 14, I'm going to get this wrong. What do you have, 15 or 16?
I don't even know anymore.
I don't know. See?
I've got the latest one. It doesn't say on the back anymore either.
Doesn't say on the back? That's a big L for Apple.
We've said this before.
I'm pretty sure
we're all wrong.
I mean, it's the naming plus the fact they all look identical and are not that different from one another.
I have the 16 Pro.
Okay, so I have the 15 Pro. So, which means I'm an earliest device that can run Apple Intelligence because it's only available on the 15 Pro. Did you say you had 16?
Yes.
16. 15.
It needs 8 gigs of RAM.
It needs 8 gigs of RAM. And we've talked about this in the podcast before. This is one of the reasons that Apple is jacking up all the RAM on its devices now, is that running AI on device, edge computing, very RAM intensive. And Apple has historically been stingy with RAM. So they're being a little bit more generous. Not hugely generous, but a little bit more generous. This was like their whole pitch is that if you buy the new iPhone or the new Mac or whatever, you get access to Apple Intelligence.
We should pause on that for a moment because it's like you open the website, Apple Intelligence is at the top. You click on a device, like I was clicking on the MacBook Pros, and it's like MacBook Pros with Apple Intelligence. You choose your chip. Do you want the M4, the M4 Pro, or the M4 Max? With Apple Intelligence. Apple Intelligence. Every single thing is with Apple Intelligence.
Yep.
It is kind of, that is the selling point.
It's incredibly, it's omnipresent. You go to apple.com, it's one of the first things it shows you. If you look at like the spec sheet of any of the devices, it's the giant brand of Apple Intelligence appears below like this has 256 gigabytes of storage space. Like, it's really part of their pitch. And without wanting to litigate the whole, what we've done a million episodes on, but as we've said in the past, Apple were late to the LLM AI moment. They weren't part of the initiating wave of it. They were definitely chasing the trend. And
Transformer models, I think it's fair to say.
Trend, like the whole transformer model LLM moment. They'd been doing AI and machine learning stuff, but certainly not in this format. And they were caught flat-footed by OpenAI, ChatGPT, that whole moment that we're currently living through.
They had the weird event where they didn't mention the word AI once, and they just kept on referring to machine learning.
Yeah.
And then they immediately changed course and just started using it constantly.
Yeah, they had a real crack at the classic Apple sort of triangulation strategy where they're like, we may not be the first to it, but we're going to define the terms by which people refer to it. We will be the front of people's mind when they think of it. And the way that we do that is by establishing our own clear brand. And they tried to do that by saying, machine learning. When everyone else is talking about AI, we're talking about machine learning. Didn't work. They had like that weird moment where Tim Cook was like, they called it Apple Intelligence. And Tim Cook was like, the thought of artificial intelligence never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
This was an independent parallel thought. Obviously a bit insane.
The craziest thing to say in an interview ever was, I still believe, like, to just say straight up to someone who's saying, so obviously Apple Intelligence based on the term AI, being like, oh, is it?
Oh, really?
No, won't think you've...
Well, actually, no, now that you mention it, artificial intelligence, Apple Intelligence, AI, yeah, I can see how you
some
might...
similarities, but no, it didn't cross our minds as we came up with the term Apple Intelligence.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing to say.
Again, the inherent Apple arrogance, the way they conduct themselves in the world, kind of only works when they are at the bleeding edge.
Yeah.
It doesn't work when they're chasing the dragon. Anyway, there's been reporting that suggested that when all this happened, and again, we should add that, their public posturing when all the ChatGPT moment happened was, everyone calm down. We've been working on stuff. We have a great artificial intelligence / machine learning team. We've got the best minds in the industry on this. Everybody cool it. We're going to release something amazing. But all the reporting from outlets like Bloomberg and whoever else suggested that, no, they were actually caught insanely flat-footed. And we're like, oh, fuck, we need this, because all of a sudden GPT has gone from being this sort of niche fixation of tech heads.
Google pit folk.
Yeah, Google brain
Google
people.
folk and weird NFPs.
Doing their weird stuff. They've got all these weird psychos. I think it's going to change the world, but they're sort of working away in a corner. But then all of a sudden ChatGPT came out and it was a consumer product. And when it's the moment it's a consumer product, Apple has to have a response for it.
One of the reasons you can see that this was a big deal was because they cut the Apple Car project basically, not immediately, but like very quickly thereafter. And one of the reasons for that is like Apple are very disciplined with their R&D spend and their CapEx in general. Like in that, even though everyone is spending like tons and tons of cash on both CapEx, buying chips, and R&D, like investing money into come up with new stuff, Apple have reportedly, after this moment, turned all their attention to AI. They're like all of their focus in R&D is in the AI space, but if you look at their reporting, their R&D spend hasn't increased. It's increased, but like the percentage of revenue and the percentage of profit, it hasn't increased. It's stayed exactly the same. They're a very disciplined company in that respect. But point being, in order to do that, you need to just be like, this car thing we're burning billions on?
Yeah.
Be gone.
As we did when we talked about it in that episode, they dumped tens of billions of dollars into the car project. It was already floundering, but they made the call and they reallocated a lot of the people who were on that to their AI, LLM, machine learning team, which is led by John Giannandrea, who is a former Google guy who they poached a little while ago. But anyway, the last Apple, I think was it the last WWDC where they announced all this stuff? I think it was. It was the last WWDC, and apparently the instruction was from the top of the company, or Craig Federici, who runs software at Apple, come up with as many possible AI things that we can cram into the next iPhone software update. Let's wow people. Let's build something that is useful and sort of puts us at the front of the pack again when it comes to AI. Have us be at the front of people's minds. Well, that's now the fruits of that endeavor are now available to us.
Yeah. I want to very quickly, before we go into that, because we're going to talk about it, another thing you mentioned before was like, oh, okay, there's people from Google and whatever, these researchers and these weird little startups, they're all doing their research stuff. That kind of isn't very Apple. You know, like Google are always doing that. They're always doing researchy stuff, blah, blah, blah. Apple want products, right?
Apple doesn't have like Google has always had Google X.
Yeah.
Where they do these kind of moonshot projects.
And they do like all the quantum stuff and they do all of this kind of researchy stuff.
They do this blue sky stuff where it's like, this may not pay off for 20 years or ever.
And even Microsoft do a little bit of it. Like Google do a heap of it.
But a lot of people, like IBM does it.
Yeah, IBM does it.
IBM's a bit more like academic, rigorous, industrial lab kind of stuff. Apple doesn't really do that stuff.
It needs to be a product.
It's got to be a product.
Already. It's like it needs to be something in someone's hand.
And don't get me wrong, they do, as we've kind of talked about, their silicon microchip team.
Oh, it doesn't mean they're not leading edge, but that's the thing. A microchip is a product.
Is iteratively
part of a product
on something,
and it's the best.
That's going to go straight into a phone.
Yeah,
and it is widely considered, alongside Nvidia, as basically the best in the business. They don't do stuff where they come up with like crazy stuff. Even their car project, which was kind of crazy,
but it's still a product, though, right?
It's still a product, and it's still like, how can we beat Tesla?
Yeah.
So they don't do this kind of stuff. And you can see that whether you want to call it like an actual existential moment for them, they didn't have anything in the tank when it came to something that was genuinely came out of left field. Yeah. And it's always been the classic Apple thing. And even like the biggest fanboys of the company will agree, very rarely have they come up with something first. They do. They come up with stuff that's like innovative and forward thinking and no one else is doing it. But a lot of the time it is like they take a general vibe that people have already put out in the market or have been talking about and they refine it and make it great. It hasn't worked super well for the Vision Pro and Apple Intelligence. It's now available on your phone. Long run up. There's been a bundle of features that have dropped if you have a phone that meets the requirements. And if you don't have a phone that meets the requirements, let me just preface this entire discussion by saying it shouldn't be the reason you upgrade.
Yeah.
Currently.
Right now, evidently, and I think it is working to a certain extent, the marketing strategy for Apple, we've talked about this, the phones aren't that different. Well, you already said it on this episode.
Yeah.
But the marketing strategy is upgrade your phone to get Apple Intelligence. Like upgrade in order to get this feature. That is basically the pitch right now. And I do think it's working. Like I did hear people at my work saying, oh, I want the Apple Intelligence thing, not knowing what it was.
Yeah, it seems like it's a cool new Apple thing. Which they
and AI is big, and I want the AI.
Yeah.
But yes, it is out, and well, we're here to review it.
We're here to review it. We're going to go through at least all the stuff that we can remember that's available. The first thing that people would probably notice when you get it, because it's kind of the flashiest feature. I mean, the first thing you usually notice is when there's a new icon on your home screen or whatever, is like the generative image stuff.
And you've said this. The icon for this is
really bad. That's like
it does not look like an Apple icon at all.
I'm going to describe it. You can open up your phone if you have a compatible one. It's like got a black border. You've got like a weird pink purple bubble. And inside it is like a fucked up little...
I think it's a kitten?
I think it's a cat, like a baby cat /
But it has maybe some fox-like qualities.
It's got some fox. It's got some wolf-like, fox-like. It's a baby cat, I think. Apple's had some stinkers in terms of their icon design over their history, but this one's pretty bad.
I reckon the thinking was it's about AI image generation, so the icon needs to show the product. The product is part of the branding of it. Look at this use case for this app, which is generating images. It's so practical that we're able to make an app icon out of an image generated using the app that you're about to open. You can see the kind of thinking there.
Yep.
But unfortunately, what that means is you end up with a kind of weird, cheap-looking app icon.
That's right. Exactly. And that, to tell you what this app is, it's like the image playground. Because obviously the flashiest thing that you can do with AI currently is image generation. That's the thing that...
in particular, this is like take a photo of yourself or use a photo of your friends and make it funny.
It's Apple's version of Midjourney or DALL-E or whatever. You can give a prompt and type in anything and it'll generate it. So you can type in like, I don't know, German Shepherd, and it will generate a German Shepherd. And then it gives you a bunch of like preset, I guess you could call them filters or something that you can slap on top, like fantasy, fireworks, adventure, beanie. And so I've just typed in German Shepherd and I tap on beanie, and then all of a sudden you get a German Shepherd. And actually what's not a beanie, it's like a baseball cap. So
I will say I do kind of like the UI. So it generates an image and then you can kind of swipe through and it generates them as you go to like off screen almost. So you can kind of keep swiping, which is a nice interaction because obviously like it's kind of saying like, we're probably not going to nail this first time or second time or third. And you know what? You can just keep scrolling forever at images. In my case, I went with the Dan Round Classic shoes just to see.
And what did it default to?
It defaulted to these kind of...
Oh, yeah. It's kind of
but
like...
they're all like the same colors, which is kind of weird. Like this blue and
orange.
Brown, like browny orange, leathery shoe. Like, why is that? It's gone for like leather shoes.
To be
leather sneaker shoes. I think it's because that is like an amalgam of every shoe ever.
Yeah, potentially. That's the default shoe right there. Well, I mean, you'll notice that when you dig around with this, it is like every image has got this kind of insanely cartoony style because, as you can tell, Apple they are not interested in being sucked into like political misinformation or whatever.
Yeah.
Everything that you generate on this thing is like exaggerated, cartoony. I would love to like apart from we need this because it exists in the market, which is obviously the driving factor of a lot of this stuff. What does like the Apple product manager for this product or the designers or, you know, the engineers or whatever, what do they imagine is like the perfect use case for this? And when you look at like the presentation, they were like sending a birthday greeting to your mum by generating an AI version of her based on images you have on your phone.
Yeah.
With her with a birthday cake. If I sent that to my mum, she would be like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't actually know what... I mean...
You can take photos of your kids and show your kids, like, here's you as a wizard, but, like, that's not really...
No, I mean, like, you could... In, like, the Apple-brained marketing way, you can kind of see, like, it's this...
delightful
amazingly
moment.
way of being creative with the people that you love by putting all the photos in there.
Yeah.
But, frankly, it's just, like...
There's no reason
no one's going to open... No one's going to open it for any, you know, more than once or twice.
I'd forgotten it. I opened it when it came out. I did one of my daughter, and... I have I have two generated photos now. The one of my daughter as a wizard and some shoes.
Oh, nice. The shoes are good. Yeah, great. I haven't even saved a single image. So, how well does it represent you?
I haven't used me. Do I need to say me? Suggestions, Raphael.
Do you want to? How on point do you think this one is?
Of you?
Yeah.
There, that's pretty good. This does not look. I don't know.
You're looking remarkably Latino in those images. You're like a knowledge worker living in Mexico City.
It's also straightened my hair, which is very strange. But whatever.
Anyway, the point... I'm not going to say this is a slam dunk of a project. I'm just repulsed by the images it's generating of me right now. I mean, they're potentially accurate, but I'm not pleased with them.
I guess it looks like me.
There's that. And then the other side of it is what they call Genmoji, which is where when you're in iMessage or another, I think it's mostly iMessage, but I assume in other apps as well, you can generate an emoji.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put my hand up and say that I think it's fucked up because I'm not going to get into the politics of emoji right now.
Okay. You think that it's sacrosanct? The emoji is sacrosanct?
Well, for those that don't know, emoji, everyone knows that like periodically you get like a drop of new emoji. You know, all of a sudden you open your phone and all of a sudden
it's a universal language.
All of a sudden, pregnant man is available.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It's just popping. Yeah.
You know, or like, there's a spider emoji now. I can figure out a way to do that. Emojis are decided on by the Unicode Consortium, which is like a non-profit that governs sort of like the universal standards of how text is displayed on computers. So there's people that get together in a room and say, all right, what are like the vibes, emotions we want people to be able to...
What's missing?
What's missing? Like what are people trying to convey via emoji that they're not able to get, and people agree, and they release it, and then all the individual device and software manufacturers go, because the emojis look different on Samsung phones versus Apple. The manufacturers can decide how it's going to be displayed. Apple insists on having the water pistol for gun, but Elon Musk's free speech platform X, it's still a Western style revolver. But Apple has wrenched that ability away from the Unicode consortium. And now it's a free-for-all.
Yeah, every emoji exists. Although
Raf's just sent me a little emoji of himself. It actually doesn't. It looks a little bit like you, with headphones and a podcast mic.
How do you make it just like a normal emoji and not me?
Well, just say like yellow face or something.
Yellow face?
Don't put words in my mouth.
No, it's just made me with a yellow face.
Has it? Okay. Let's not get too bogged down in this nonsense. But the point is that you can generate an emoji for everything. They've tried to lock it down so you can't do anything rude. But after I spent probably 45 minutes to 2 hours dicking around with it, I made it generate some rude stuff. So, folks, if you want to create rude Genmoji for iMessage, you need to get in and do it now because it's going to stop being funny in less than 2 weeks.
Now, you mentioned this to me before, and I was like, I didn't notice that. My phone has gotten hot.
Yeah.
Like, over the course of we've been chatting about this in the last kind of 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
My phone is hot.
Yeah. This is the thing I'm trying to figure out. So one of the pitches for Apple Intelligence that Apple have put forward is that we want to do LLMs that are sort of private. We don't want the stuff that you're sending, like when you type in Raf but yellow face into...
Yep, which I did. Well, I didn't say Raf. I just said yellow face, and it used me as the baseline.
Assume that's what you meant. It's got to remain private. If you're using it to interpret stuff that you're writing in text message, you want it to be private. So Apple came up with a system which they announced at their WWDC, which is we process as much as possible as we can using large language models that are on the phone and like image models and whatever. Anything that requires more than the phone's power, we pass off through some complex handshake system to our own personal servers, which are running on iPhone chips.
M2s,
and it tunnels in such a way that it retains your data privately. And if you ask a question that can only be answered by a more powerful system like ChatGPT, which is the one they have a partnership with, it'll go to that. So it's like this 3-tier kind of security system. I would like to know I don't know if...
My phone is now cooled down. Yeah. I stopped using it.
Yeah.
The Genmoji.
Because when I was messing around with Genmoji and trying to generate rude stuff, which is, a normal human impulse.
Yes.
I can't be criticized for that.
It tried to burn your hands
While
off.
I was doing that, my phone got to be about 40 degrees, which makes me think that
it must be happening on device.
There's image models happening on device.
Yeah.
And they're pretty, as I said, that's pretty simple image generation. It's probably got a really small data set that's trained on emoji. And then, I don't know, it probably is trained on other stuff as well because you can say generate a French bulldog, which is an emoji, and it will generate that. So it probably does have...
It's got something running locally.
Yeah. But some part of it must be running locally because, the phone gets red hot.
Yeah. And I don't think I've experienced that with this phone.
No, me neither. My phone doesn't get super hot very often, but when I'm doing that AI stuff...
When I'm generating me... like a Genmoji version of me with headphones on to represent a podcaster, it's using more cycles than it ever has for anything I've ever done before.
Which, I think it really does give you a sense of the AI moment. Doing something that's dog shit, doesn't even look good, and sucks.
Yeah.
And it's using more power than the human race used.
for thousands and thousands of years.
Until 1980.
No, totally. But it's easy to externalize, right? Because it's like, okay, sure. So for Apple are trying to do what they can on device, and it's, let's be frank, the worst image generator out of all of them, where you have very limited options. Like, think about what is actually happening in a data center when I ask, when we type shoes into
ChatGPT,
the O1. Like, think about what's going on with those chips that's running on.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, extrapolate. Something that made you hot to do a slightly different emoji than what's already available on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the way society's going, and we are powerless to stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
we kneel before,
we yield.
Okay, cool. The other thing is,
so that's image generation.
the classic gives you in messages. I think the one that most people are going to see straight away is like suggested replies, which most people are probably used to by now. In every other app, except it has a beautiful rainbow kind of flair to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it gives you suggested replies that are a little bit better than have existed on the iPhone before. Great. You've also got like writing tools, so you can highlight text that you've written. I'm going to type it into my group chat right now. I'm going to say, hello, I was just hit by a bus while crossing the street. And you can highlight that on your phone. Go to writing tools. I am going to say, make that sound professional. There's a professional button. Okay, well, let's just hit me with writing tools. Aren't designed to work with this type of content. Okay,
Sorry to say, Apple Writing Tools has gone woke.
Hello?
Well, so actually, that's actually bad.
I'm
like,
late.
what if I was trying to what if you were legitimately trying to say that?
All right, let me try this one. I wrote, hello, I'm late to your dad's funeral because I stopped for a beer. And I hit professional, and Apple Intelligence has come back with, hello, line break. I regret to inform you that I am tardy.
Tardy? Very professional.
To your father's funeral due to an unforeseen stop for a beverage. Would you say that's...
I'd say that's the most offensive thing anyone's ever sent me. Like, framing it like that?
So I'll go...
Like, oh, dear me, I happened to have fallen into a pub on the way to your father's funeral.
And I went back to friendly and it said, hey there, sorry I'm running late to your dad's funeral. I had to stop for a quick beer. See, these are the amazing things you can do. At least it's not making my phone hot. And it gives you a bunch of other options. You can summarize, key points, list, turn it into a table. You can also describe your change. This is
vaguely useful if I wanted to turn something into dot points. I feel like with the quick editing thing, that's my number one use case is rambling a bunch of shit off and then being like, turn that into dot points. Which I think I said 2 years ago. That's a great use case for that.
It will do it because you've got a text box where you can put it in and it does let you. This is like the AI test, the official downrun AI test for the system. It's like the Turing test.
Yeah.
It does let you put it into Jamaican patois. So, I'm not going to say it. I have too much respect, but it does let you do it. So that's built in. Again, it's one of those things where that is hidden behind highlighting it and tapping, and then there's a million options that pop up.
It's also just not something that... I mean, I guess people who... English second language.
English second language. Also, I always remember one time, I think you and I were at the pub, and we met a guy who...
is a drill rapper. From a known band who was semi-successful.
Yeah.
Pretty successful.
And this was early ChatGPT days. So he was an early adopter after it came out. And he was basically like, I hate writing emails. I suck at writing emails. I suck doing professional communication. So I just get ChatGPT to write everything for me. There's probably a ton of people that do that right now.
Yeah, and sometimes you're going to message people that, your boss or your grandma or whatnot, and there would be people who would use it.
But it's hidden behind so many weird menus.
And also, this is not a killer feature. Let's be frank. And every single other app in the world, seemingly nowadays, has it in some form.
I mean, Gmail's had suggested replies forever, but Gmail is integrating this stuff as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, Office with Copilot integrating this stuff. This is another thing that we've said on Downrate a million times before. We're already at the point where you don't know any email you get sent.
Yeah.
I mean, I should clarify, you do know because it's pretty obvious.
It's more and more annoying. It's quite obvious the amount of AI content that is now being sent to me by people and people I know or whatever in offices, in Slack, via email, in end of year stuff. I'm getting pumped with it, end of year Christmas party emails and calendar invites, and it's just ChatGPT version of end of year Christmas invite with emojis and the structure though. The structure is always too good. It's it's too structured. Yeah. These emails or messages or whatever. It's
because ChatGPT in particular of all the AI systems has that I guess it must be part of the built-in way that it's trained to do things, but it always will lay out at the top of anything what it's going to talk about. It's like this such and such is at the intersection of blah blah and blah. Yeah. And it's just like no one talks like that.
No, and it will always do like a juxtaposition thing.
It's not
towards the end. It's not like such and such.
It's not just X. It's actually what. It puts that in every fucking message. Yeah. And people, it's not just the podcast. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of you're right. That repetition comes throughout.
One of those things. Again, we talked about this in an early down round where I'm like, in an ideal world, what this leads to is meaning that this long form communication is meaningless, and we need to get back to the dot points. If you're pumping in like a few dot points, leave it at the dot points. We don't need to have all the superfluous bullshit.
We don't want to spit it out.
Because you just end up with AI talking to AI and people who I can talk to with my voice and communicate with and have a conversation with where we can talk like normal humans, and now sending each other these friggin' 3 paragraphs.
9 pages, yeah.
Just crap with flowery language or not necessarily flowery, but like whatever it is like this highly kind of structured, regimented 101 version. As people have kind of said, like we're at the point where it's like first year uni is kind of how it writes. GPT-2 was early high school. 3 was like high school. We're at kind of that first year uni stage.
Yeah.
But I don't need things to be like introductory sentence, example, explain your example, explain how your example is relevant to the overall concept. Like I don't need that.
No one needs that. Yeah, exactly. If you want to talk about it in purely economic rationalist terms, it's like when you send the price of 9,000 words of copy to zero or virtually zero, you're going to see a lot more text.
Yeah.
Like text is,
Yeah.
When you set the price of text at 0.001 cents per token or whatever, hey presto, we're going to see a whole lot more slop.
Yeah, totally.
The same plays out for images and video.
But this will be around forever. Like, me talking about some paradigm shift where all of a sudden we don't need decks, we just need dot points or whatever because everyone knows that you can turn dot points into decks and actually like, let's distill it down to, like that ain't going to happen because the reality is I'm saying this, sure, me and all the other millennials and Zoomers know that we're all just using AI, but Gen Xers and Boomers are going to reply to these like long form things. They're like, what? Such a thoughtful message.
Exactly. But you got to get in because, we've got a narrow window of opportunity where you can still impress people with the slop you're generating with ChatGPT or, Apple Intelligence.
Well, yeah, anyway, that's what we're on. Sorry, reframing things in messages and emails.
That's the case.
Another thing, do you use Apple's mail client?
No.
Because I do. So they have big Apple Intelligence wow feature. In inboxes now you have categories.
Yeah, it automatically. I mean, I haven't seen it because I don't use it, but what's the...
No, it's exactly the same as Gmail introduced like 7 years ago.
Oh, you mean when it's like promotion? And shit like that?
It's basically that.
Yeah, okay, great.
It's that.
I mean, mail would have to be one of the most...
Like, I like it. I use it. Well, I use a bunch though. That's my weird system where like mail I use for personal mail and then Gmail
I used to use it until like Gmail just clearly eclipsed it with organizational features and I've never gone back. And I'm glad to hear that they're finally catching up under the banner of like using LLMs, which Google didn't have to do.
Yeah.
To automatically assume that like a receipt from Amazon is a receipt and an email from like a weird clothing store is promotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
Well, they've done that.
But yeah, so they've done that.
That's good.
That's amazing. The feature that I've at least found like slightly useful is the notification summaries.
The summaries, yeah.
I've got like, and it actually gives me a reason to turn notifications back on for stuff like work communication platforms like Slack or Google Chat or whatever. So far, it is relatively useful. It's like this person said this over the course of the 6 messages they sent me.
Yeah, I give it a pass. Like it's going to get things wrong sometimes. It's going to get confused.
And it has.
But also like, well, I talked about this. We both talked about this ages ago where it's like AI is good when it doesn't have to be exactly right 100% of the time.
Just like capture the vibes.
Capture the vibes. Sometimes it's going to be wrong. That's fine. If it's weird, you can click on it and open it up and work out what it meant. That's fine. Like that's when AI is good. When it's probabilistic, not deterministic. In any situation where it doesn't actually matter if it gets it wrong, it's useful. It's not useful when it's like if it was sending that notification to my mum or whatever, or like as verbatim text, that would be bad.
Yeah, if it's automatically
doing something with it,
making decisions.
Yeah.
But if it's showing you like a scrap of text that's based off 6 different text messages, and maybe it miscalculates the vibe slightly, but you still sort of get it.
And as soon as you click on it and open it up, you're like,
you can see what it is. You can see what it is.
Then that's fine.
Yeah, and presumably they're going to refine this and make it better, so whatever. I think so far that's sort of useful.
Yeah.
Again, that alone as probably the one thing so far I've said that's like I find this to be an improvement on the existing iPhone experience. Probably not worth slapping Apple Intelligence over every single bit of branding they've had over the past 6 months, but fine. Great.
Yeah, there's a broader thing here because Siri is the other thing. It's like supposed to be improved, and I tried to ask it kind of general questions, and it's better than it was, but it's still not useful. It's not like ChatGPT or whatever. You're not interfacing with Chat. Even though you can go into your settings, by the way. Obviously, like we're both pro ChatGPT users. You can log in, blah, blah, blah. And then you can turn off Ask Me. Like, because it will say like, do you want me to use ChatGPT? Or do you want me to use OpenAI? You can turn it off from asking you every time because it's obviously a privacy feature. But still, A, it takes ages. B, it will still say, instead of saying, here's what I found on the web, it'll like summarize what it found on the web or what Wikipedia says, and it'll just start reading Wikipedia or whatever. It's better, but it's not like mind-blowing. It's not like the first time I used ChatGPT's voice chat feature. Like it's nowhere near that. It's nowhere near that. Which is where it needs to be.
That's where it needs to be. The Siri doesn't work.
It's fine, but but they should have. So, did we mention this on Down Round, or did we just talk about it? Like, the rumor is there's something called like Siri GPT or something. That's like what they're working. That's what they're working on, but that's also a year to a year and a half away. And it's like, I personally think, just from a brand perspective, they've changed how Siri looks, right? It's got that beautiful kind of colorful thing.
If you open the button, instead of coming from the bottom, it has this weird purple and pink and blue shimmer that appears around the
border.
It does look cool.
It looks really cool. In CarPlay, same deal. But like, they've basically rebranded Siri. They basically said, here's the new Siri. And it's just not that good. I think it's like a rag model thing. Whereas like, did they kind of miss a trick there? Because Siri had such a bad brand for so long. And you're going like, here's the new Siri, Apple Intelligence. We're rebranding it. It's got this colorful rainbow thing. And it's like slightly better, but still slow and a bit weird and like gets confused very easily.
Yeah.
When if you've got some new cool one coming out in a year and a half, I know it's too far away. Like, do you not just wait for that?
And you can double tap at the bottom of the screen and it opens up a text input now instead of a voice one.
Yeah.
Which again is like, I know that text is kind of like the trend since ChatGPT. Even, I mean, ChatGPT and other LLMs have gone back to voice with its voice rollout, voice and multimodal inputs or whatever. But for it to, literally, again, I remind you, 14 years after Siri was first announced, for it to go and be like, actually, there's just like a regular ass text box that you can double tap and add in, seems like just a hilarious pivot for them to realize that, like, okay, the input, like the core input for a lot of these systems is still text.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously they haven't nailed it. Siri's not better. Using ChatGPT through that is worse than just using it through the app.
Way worse. It's so slow.
It's slow. It puts it in like a tiny text box at the top. It's just like not a good product.
It's quicker to open ChatGPT and just use ChatGPT.
Exactly. And ChatGPT you can do, all kinds of funky stuff. Obviously, you can do the voice control through there. They've added this, I know last week we talked, well, at least for our premium subscribers, we talked about the 12 days of shipmas or whatever. They've now released the thing they demoed, was it like 9 months, 12 months ago, which is like the video input multimodal voice control. Hang on, I'm going to see if I can
get it.
See, I don't want it to be Santa.
ChatGPT's voice is Santa.
Hang on, this is actually the second time I've opened this. What am I looking at?
It looks looks like you're at a table with a microphone and a drink. Is there something specific you want to know?
That's actually not me. That's like my podcast co-host.
Got it. So, are you two setting up for a podcast episode?
Hey, we're right in the fucking middle of it. Get with the program.
We're live.
Oh, got it. Well, good luck with the episode. How can I help while you're live?
Can you roast the guy that I'm looking at right now? It's okay. He's fully on board with it. He's okay if you go kind of hard. But, like, just look at him physically and how would you roast him?
I don't think roasting is the best idea.
No, but
Sure,
he's totally cool with it.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, he's totally
This is
fine.
me talking now. Just go on.
Just go on. Just, like, give him
Just
both.
a light roasting.
Just a light roasting. Nothing crazy. Just, like, based on what he looks like, what would you say?
I appreciate the openness, but I'd rather not roast anyone. You both seem like great hosts, and I'm sure your listeners enjoy the show.
No, they don't actually. They hate it.
I'm sure that's not true.
What's he holding?
It looks like you're holding a small piece of paper.
Okay.
Anyway, that's a fail. See, that's something where Siri could step in and improve by letting you roast someone.
This is one of those things where it's like, it is a cool technology to have a camera open and it can see what you can kind of communicate with. But again, it's like, how would I use this? Now, use cases will presumably eventuate, and there is some world where, again, once we got AR glasses on and the camera's always rolling and just like we're used to knowing that our phone and that our computer can see what we can see at all times, and it's, you know, ambient and ubiquitous or whatever. But it's still cool. It's still cool tech.
It's cool. Yeah.
That obviously not Apple Intelligence.
No, but it's also, I think
It's also, yeah.
telling also that, like, you know, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google are like messing around with these technologies. And Google's probably actually the most prominent version here. They just announced the latest version of Gemini. Well, it's their tiny Gemini model, which is called Flash, which is like the super compact version, but it has multimodal inputs. It's really good. It's obviously dramatically better than anything Apple's working on. And I guess the suggestion is they're ready to integrate that in a big way into Android. And to look at like all the stuff that's going on at the bleeding edge. And yes, Apple can catch up, but it's also like,
I don't think Apple are going to catch up though. I think this is like a strategic difference, right? Apple, and to a certain extent Microsoft, this broader conversation where it's like, okay, creating these foundational models, these big world models, the big ones, Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, Llama, and then some other vague ones. These big models is friggin' expensive.
Yeah.
As we've talked about at length.
Grok.
Grok. So of course, Elon's Grok.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, he's got 200,000 H100.
yeah,
And he's talking about buying 1 million.
yeah. That's a lot of processing power.
It's insanely expensive to build these things. And I just said, we just mentioned 5 of them. So potentially, strategically, do you need to invest that much money on having your own, or can you just, what Apple's already kind of doing, plug in the ChatGPT and like at any one time, either Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or Grok will be the best one, or Llama, and Llama's, you know, open source as well. So I don't think Apple are going to try and compete. I don't think they're going to build their own.
No.
They'll want to put like an LLM on the phones. Yes, they'll probably want to do stuff like that. Like probably work with a Llama model, or, you know, what's the French one? Mistral or something like that, to get a really small one that works on the phone.
They will be working on their own, and they have their own small
little ones, but they're not, I don't think.
They're not interested in doing a ChatGPT.
Because also, why would you, the cost of it is so astronomical. It's like, outsource that to these guys and just plug it in. Obviously, the broader question is like, what is the competitive advantage of having that? In the end, does it mean that actually ChatGPT, like if you do have that world model, that is all you need? And if that's plugging into other APIs and like running your life, blah, 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 then you don't need the phone in the end? Or at the end of the day, do you still always need the friggin' phone and you can just like use whichever one's best? And that's commodified, basically. Like the world model, the foundation model is commodified. That's kind of the question, right? Because at the moment, Apple, I think, is like abandoned it. They're not behind. I mean, they are behind. They were behind, and they're not even going to try and catch up.
No. I think the big question I think it's worth asking. I mean, obviously this is V1. They're going to improve it in various ways. They'll probably have new partnerships. Obviously, their current partnerships with ChatGPT, the current partnership is extremely underwhelming, but potentially they could improve that and how it's displayed and how it's integrated. But I think one of the key questions that we'll figure out probably shake out over the coming years is is it more important, as it has been over the past decade of technology, to control the current platform and then, extract value from people who make software and people who use it and people who whatever? Or is having a really powerful foundation model like XAI or
is it the
OpenAI,
new iPhone?
Is that the new, has Apple just been Nokia'd by having no fundamental grasp on this technology?
Yeah.
And I think it is actually an open question. I saw people having this conversation online after this Apple Intelligence stuff coming out where they were like, they've just been Nokia'd. This is the future. They haven't got the juice, and now they are going to be replaced by these companies who will be able to build a hardware strata on top of that, as opposed to the other way around. I don't think that's a foregone conclusion,
No,
but
it's certainly not.
but it's a possible.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
And so, there are two strategies at play here-ish, in that Apple, and as I said, to a certain extent Microsoft, because they do have the OpenAI deal where they own a large percentage of it, but Microsoft aren't making their own foundation model, because why would they spend that money when they've got the investment?
They're making smaller ones.
They're making small ones,
but
again,
they're not making a GPT-4 competitor or whatever.
And that is the thing. It's basically our foundation models a cool but competitive product that we can plug into a device, or are they a paradigm shift that will actually in the end eat the device itself?
Yep.
I don't know. My gut tells me Apple wins, but
well, I mean, my gut tells me that I don't think the iPhone will lose.
Yes.
In the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of other factors that play upon that, and I also don't think that Android is going away.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that is the other thing. It's obviously Google have both of those levels, right? They have the AI capabilities, and they have they have the device with the pixels or whatever, but the operating system of the device. However, the nature of Google, as we've said 9 billion times, is they're a horizontal services play. So it'd be a big call if they were okay, we have Gemini 2 or whatever, and we have this leading model, but we're not going to allow other people to use it. It's only for us, and it's only for our devices, and it's only for Android. They tried that once upon a time with Google Maps, and it failed horribly and led to competition. Do they do it again? I wrote a blog post about this a long time ago. Do they have another crack at that? Do they have another crack at being you know what? We're going vertical.
We're vertically integrated, yeah. Probably not. But I don't know. I think we are at a point where the table's been flipped a little bit on what the future of this stuff and how it all fits together. I certainly don't know how it's all going to fit together. But there's obviously something that's going on here. Everyone is investing in it. The platform landscape is going to change.
Yeah.
In various ways. But I don't know. I don't know if Apple will be the ones to. They've certainly shown that they are behind, and they know they're behind. They've got enough forward momentum to sustain them for probably the next 10 years.
Yeah. Well, as well as, again, going back to if, as we've discussed before, the transformer model is kind of, not to go into a huge long diatribe, but it's if the transformer model, it's okay, we haven't hit the wall, but it's going to slow down. The pace of improvement is going to slow down. Then all that really is left is integration, right? It's building on top of the capabilities we have, which is heaps of potential for. What we have now with this technology of LLMs and the transformer model in general, there's so much potential for cool gizmos and gadgets and widgets and SaaS products, importantly.
Crucially.
That you can build on top of, that we don't know yet, that people are going to invent over the next decade. If that's the case, and we've kind of hit that wall, then Apple probably have made the right call, right? Because it's they're just going to probably be the best to build the app and the ecosystem on top of it, and the integrations on top of it, without needing to spend all of the money on giving it to NVIDIA and buying nuclear power plants and whatnot. So, but yes, as you say, only time will tell.
Only time will tell, folks. And if your head's hurting and thinking about that, trying to picture how the next 10 years of 10, 20, 50 years of technology will play out, don't worry your pretty little head about it. Just go to Genmoji and type in me in a slick ass business suit. and just enjoy whatever it outputs for you.
Mine put me in a business suit without me asking.
Well, is that really a business suit? No tie.
No tie.
You can't,
I never wear a tie.
No, well, it's right on that. You look like a digital marketer. And what would you believe? It's exactly what you are.
Intelligence.
Another wonderful episode of Down Round completed, folks. And if you're hearing this, it means that you got all the incredible value from that episode and you've paid us nothing.
No.
But we're giving the opportunity to subscribe to Down Round Premium.
Yes.
Head to downround.net and subscribe for our premium product, and you will get an extra episode every week, plus access to our extremely lively Discord.
2.
And that's it.
No ads.
No ads. Sorry.
Well, as I said, fewer ads. We reserve the right to put ads.
I don't think we should say that in any of them.